Welcome to my podcast, Shaping Your Journey. My guest in this episode is well-known sound engineer and author Dennis Moody, who has worked with many great artists, both in studio and live, in theaters like Carnegie Hall, Hollywood Bowl, and many, many others. Here is Dennis Moody. Hello, Dennis. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a while. We've been chasing each other, and finally we got this together. Thanks for joining me on this conversation. Conversations to try and inspire anybody who's listening, and in the in the world of shaping your journey. And as I always say to everybody, I mean, you're always driving your bus, and what happens to you, you actually decide most of it, except when a tree falls in front of you, will. But the decision that you made to walk that way.
Right.
So,
well, thank you for having me. I'm happy to
yeah.
be here. Good to see you again. It's been a while.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And you're out in beautiful LA,
Yeah.
sunshine.
It's been
But
nice, warm, not too much, but just right.
beautiful. Before we get going on talking about shaping your journey, let's start just in the beginning. What started this whole thing for you? You've been being a sound engineer, besides it being many other things. I mean, the sound engineering part, and that's what you're really known for by many, many great people. Like, where did this start for you? What was that spark? Where did that fire start for you?
Well, that's a good question. So I used to be a drummer myself, when I was
Ah,
6 years old. My brothers and I started a band. One of my brothers, I have a twin brother, so he was also six. And our other brother, who was three, and he played guitar, and he's still playing guitar and making a living at it and doing very well. We had a band, and I tried for about 10 years to um, hone my craft, and I'd go see bands all the time. When we were kids, we'd just concert freaks, and living where we did, there were some good venues around. Um, I I was not satisfied with my progress, not satisfied at all with it, and I'd practice and practice, and I wanted to be more involved in the creation of music. I really wanted to be a producer, which I have accomplished over the years, quite a few projects I've done. But the last straw was when I went to see, I was 16, maybe 17 years old, and I went to Santa Monica Civic to see Mahavishnu Orchestra, John McLaughlin. And I sitting there watching, I think it's Billy Cobham. It
Billy
might have
Cobham.
been Narada Walden, but I'm pretty sure it was Billy Cobham. And I'm sitting there watching him play in the front row center and just laughing and go, I can't do that. I'll never be able to do that. I don't want to do that. So I said, I always wanted to make music and produce, so write songs with my brothers. And so that's how I started. I gave that up, sold my drums, bought a car, started driving up to Hollywood every Friday after school for the weekend and going through. They had a thing called the Studio Menu back then. It was put out by one of the rental companies. I probably Audio Rents at that time, and JVC later. And I had 200 studios around Hollywood, and I'd go to all of them. I'd start at the top and I'd go, oh, I don't like that one. Cross it off. Oh, I like that one. And I continually went. And after about 10 months, the guy who owned Paramount Recording on Santa Monica and Vine, he said, I see you every Friday. You really must want a job or something. Can you use a broom? I'm not kidding. We're
Wow.
remodeling one of the studios here, and we need someone to help the carpenters who are doing cleaning up and running errands, getting wood, stuff like that. Okay, I'll do that. Um, I had about three studios I was looking at the time, and I chose Paramount because Frank Zappa had recorded all his great records
Right.
there. Overnight Sensation, Apostrophe, Live at the Roxy, and elsewhere by an engineer named Kerry McNabb. Uh, he's vanished. I haven't seen or heard of his whereabouts. Someone said he passed away, but I haven't talked to him in 20 years. But I got the job and I go, wow, this is great. They're going to need, and then after I said, they're going to need someone to man this room. When it's done, they're going to need an assistant to staff this room. So I said, I'm going to get that job. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to I moved up. I lived out by the coast, San Pedro, which is north of the LA harbor. It's about 22 miles away from Hollywood. That would be 30 kilometers to you, kilometer people.
Yes.
And I got a little
Yeah.
apartment on Santa Monica and Western, which now you don't even go there. My rent was $45 a month back then.
Wow.
Yeah. So I got the apartment and then they saw, oh, this guy's serious, he's coming here every day and doing it. But they said, we already have a guy. We see what you're doing and we see you working hard and we appreciate it, but we already have a guy for that position. So I said, well, I'm going to work harder. And I did. I said, I'm going to show them I'm serious. And it worked for me. I got the gig doing that. It's basically what you call a gopher,
Yeah.
go for this, go for that. And I did that. And I said, I don't want to be a gopher. I want to be an assistant. So I started hanging out. I was there from 6 in the morning till midnight every day, hanging out,
Wow.
meeting, like sidemen musicians who come into the lounge. I talk to them, get to know some of the people. Some were my age, young musicians. Uh, and I got to know some of these people and uh, started started getting to know the engineers and to help them. And off on my own, I'd hang out after work,
Right.
go hang out, and go out to eat with them when the band went out. In fact, the first record was a Johnny Guitar Watson record. This first one that was a big hit, Ain't That a Bitch? And I got to know the Walt Fowler, who plays trumpet, great trumpet player, still around. And it turned out him and his brother Bruce and Albert Wing, who are the tenor player for Zappa, they lived about 2 blocks from me. So we used to go out and eat pizza and hang out, and I got to know them, and we started doing work together and off hours, and that's how I got. That was my first introduction to how I got into it. But the story continues. There's more, but
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a fantastic story, and most of us have our versions of it, and people who come to a block and somebody tells them they can't do something, they can do one of two things: they believe them,
yeah,
and and end up not doing what they really want to do, or they say, well, that's an invitation. It's what happened to me. I mean, I was told I can't do this, so I decided, well, I really want to. So it
yeah,
kind of it either puts a cap on you and you become blind and you're not ready to undertake anything that you really want to do, which is always a lot of work
yeah,
with great payoff. Or you say, you know what, I can deal with that. I'll do what I have to do, honestly, of course, all the work that needs to be done. And there are paths. You need to meet
yeah.
people. You need to learn. You need to be in the environment. You have, as I always say, you have to show up.
Yeah, you make your own path.
Yeah.
They told me
Shape.
blatantly, no, you're not getting the job. Thank you, but no. I said, that's no, not going to do that.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It continues on. I mean, so I started watching, I'd hang out after work, my 8 or 9 a.m. to 6 a.m. official shift, which was I was always there early and I was always stay late. I'd hang out. I got to know Kerry McNabb and Larry Hirsch, great engineers. Larry, I still have a little contact with. Kerry, like I say, I lost him years ago. I don't know where he is or if he's still even with us. But I'd hang out and watch and learn. And I used to have a little notepad in my top pocket with a pen or pencil, and I'd go, "Wow, that sounds great." And I'd look after the session. I'd write down settings on the API console with the 550A EQs that are so legendary. I'd write it down, and I'd watch what he did. If you listen to those albums that he did in the mid to late 70s, he did the first Weather Report record, Carey did. He did all Johnny Guitar Watson's first two huge hits, two or three actually, no, four. He did George Duke, he did Zappa, Flor Purim, and Airto. I met them and got to be very good friends. I still talk to Flora occasionally, just 50 years later.
Wow.
Um, listen to those records, and they'd have such a unique sound to them that I've never heard, especially for that era,
Sure.
So I'd watch him and learn. So I finally got my first session. This guy comes in. It was for Motown. I'd never assisted, and the new remodeled studio was ready to go. Everything was tested. And a guy comes in, great guy, I really liked him, but he had a different style of engineering. His name was Cy Mitchell. Bless him, he's not with us anymore, unfortunately. And Cy worked with Chicago, Janis Joplin, Buffalo Springfield. He was a
Right.
staff engineer for Columbia Records, so he got all the gigs. They just assigned him to him. But his style was a little different. So um, I got to watch. So it's the first session we did. I came in. Hi, I'm Dennis. I'm your assistant. It's my first session in the new room. I didn't say it's my first session ever, but it was.
Right.
What do you want me to do? And he had a list of mics scribbled on a napkin, and he said, just plug these mics in, and when they're not looking, pour a little of their booze in my coffee cup because they don't like me drinking you know. So, but he was a great guy. So I watched him and I go, why does that sound so different from what Kerry McNabb is doing or Larry or some of the other engineers? And I'd write that down. Okay, do it this way. Take into mind if you do it this way, it's going to sound like this. And I actually learned a couple really good things from him, but I learned a lot more about how not to do things. Don't do this. But he had some good ideas. I'm not speaking negatively of him. I
Right.
really liked him. But he got in a little. Oh, that session was called Love Hangover by Diana Ross. Number one
Hey.
Grammy winning. That's the first record officially I ever worked on in my life. And I think at that time they were paying me $6 an hour to
Wow. That's a
assist.
lot for back
Yeah,
then.
yeah, and the studio bill was 140 an hour to Motown though. So I was going, this doesn't sound right. But I'll continue that part in a minute here. So I'm working with them. James Gadson, I believe
Oh,
James Jamerson was on there.
wow.
Sonny Burke was on keys. Eddie Bongo Brown was on percussion. They had Art Wright was the arranger, Arthur Wright, arranger and not producer. Hal Davis was the producer. And we did drums, acoustic piano, three guitars, bass, and Rhodes, all live, all in one room onto 16 tracks.
Okay.
Now, when you're doing that, you got to put the drums on three tracks, maybe four, kick, snare, and then a stereo
Right.
spread of the rest of the kit. You don't have time. It's mixed. It's done.
Yeah.
Whatever you do that's it.
Yeah.
So I learned how to very quickly make decisions sonically and watching Carey and the way he EQ'd and did got his sounds, it was very quick for me. So after the sessions, um, Cy would say, okay, I got to run. I have another date. They're 3-hour union calls. I
Right.
mean, you set up, you have 1 hour to set everything up. You have about 15 minutes to get the sounds, not kidding. And you do a 3-hour session and they leave. So Cy goes, I have another session over at blah, blah, blah. I got to go run them a quick mix. So Hal was never quick to get out of there. He liked to have a little party. So I'd make the mix and we'd chat, but there'd always a lot of people around. So he goes, "What are you doing? You're not here to make coffee and plug mics in for Cy. What are you doing?" I said, "I'm, going to be an engineer. I'm going to be a producer someday." He goes, "Good." So after about a year, let's see, let me think back. After about a year, um, we were working, and he and Cy had Motown and Cy had a little bit of a thing about finances because some of the engineers there were trying to really highball the clients. Okay, well, everybody, the average rate for a top engineer back then is about $20 to $25 an hour. That's it. I mean, even like
Wow.
Bruce Swedeen and these guys, that was pay then. That was good pay for an engineer. But a couple of guys said, "We're not going to do this. We want more. We want 50." So a lot of guys who didn't deserve that or couldn't earn that, they dropped out a little, but they had a little tiff. So they asked me to do a secret midnight session, union date. It started at midnight. I set it up myself. I don't even remember if I had an engineer because Hal knew that I was doing this. I'd play him tapes from my brother's band that we'd do, in the weekends. We'd come in for a few hours and do demos. And I'd play him. "Let me hear what you got. Let me hear what you got." He'd always tell me. So I'd put on a little 7.5 inch, quarter-inch reel to
Oh,
reel, play
yes.
it for him. It's great, great. So they called me in to do the session. They go, "Don't say anything to anybody. Lights out. It's a union date, midnight. We can't let anybody know that we're doing this. We want to see how you work. We need to cut this tune for Thelma Houston, who was a big artist back then." And
Yes.
we had just done "Don't Leave Me This Way," which was
Right.
her big, huge hit. And so I did, Cy cut the tracks on that. And then then they had their little tiff, and I came in and I did this song, and they sent the files to Barry Gordy's engineer. I can't remember his name right now. And he said, "I don't know who this kid is, but don't let the Cy in the studio anymore. This stuff is fantastic." I can't remember his
that's
name right
that's a
now,
great
but he
endorsement.
was the Motown engineer back in Detroit. And then they also had their office over in Hollywood, south of Melrose. So that's how I got in there, and I ended up doing uh, a whole album for Thelma Houston, and I did Mary Wilson's first album. She was one of the Supremes. I did her first solo album, the whole thing, everything from
Nice.
tracking to mixing. But on "Don't Leave Me This Way," they finished with Cy, kind of. So I came in and there's this funky little clavinet breakdown in that song. I recorded that with John Barnes playing, and it was is it John Barnes or Greg Fillingames? I remember working with both of those guys back then quite often. And so I got in there and I proved myself to them and started doing everything. I worked for Barry Gordy, Iris Gordy, Gwen Gordy, all the Gordys I worked with, Hal, Mark Gordon. We did the
Wow.
Fifth Dimension record. I was 20. How old was I then? I was less than 25 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
I was probably between 22 and 25.
But a lot of people underestimate how important that is, except those of us who are involved in the process on whatever level. I mean, I did a lot of recording, and it got to a point where certain engineers, where
Mhm.
you spotted them, you listened back to what they were doing. The same, especially when you're doing a lot of sessions,
Yeah.
some really stand out, and you say, well, like every time I work with this guy, it's always like 10 times more. I mean, everybody's good, but for some reason, this person did
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can't ask because it's not something that they really
No,
necessarily
it's
talk
in your
about.
head, in your soul.
But it's amazing. And then some of us would walk in, or when we get called for a session, we would actually ask, is is so and so going to be on? Is Tim going to be on that
Yeah.
session? And then all of a sudden, people were wondering, like, why are some of these people, some of the guys asking for, but everybody knew.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
remember
That's
doing
what
it.
it
Now
is.
you just inspired something that, I mean, we went through that process. I had forgotten about that, but I remember doing an album, an album with my group Repercussion, and
Mhm.
we decided we were touring so much that we didn't have time to do an album. So we said, okay, let's plan it all, and we have to do it all in one day.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Mhm.
So we rehearsed everybody, all the parts, everything we wanted to do, all the numbers we want, and we wanted to do this album that was totally different.
Mhm.
And so we hired extra percussionists, singers. We said with the engineer, we agreed that we were going to go in this one studio, and there's a studio that was the old RCA studio here in Montreal, which was the big room, like Frank Sinatra even did some things there. It was that type of room from back in that day, right? Wood paneling and the whole bit. And there's a lot of jazz stuff that was done later. But
Right.
for this session, we set up all live in the room,
Mhm.
and everybody was there. Vocals, percussion, extra. We were four percussionists, and
Right.
we're playing all kinds of things in different numbers. It was a really complicated thing, and I remember in one tune, the engineer comes out and he says, "In this one, Aldo, your cymbal, it's a beautiful sound, and I don't want to change it." But when you're writing it, you really have to play it like you're not even touching it,
Oh
because the
yeah, just
rest is
licking.
fantastic. So I'm like my brain is. I had to like adjust myself to the way they place things,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
and I when I listened back, what we did was we recorded three versions of each one, and we go next, and we just chose the best one, the best
Yeah.
take. No cuts, no overdubs,
Yeah.
nothing. And it was all done,
Live, was it done live to two track or was it done? Yeah, I loved
yeah,
those.
live to two tracks. I said it's unforgiving. And what we do, so we had to make the adjustments ourselves. And I'll never forget that. It was so hard. I had to play like
Mhm.
here, and I'm going, or whatever I was doing with whenever I'm not hitting a cymbal. His
Right.
cymbals had to be really soft.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. And today I still listen to that album, and it's one of my favorite sound wise.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
it's amazing. So I mean, anybody who's never had that kind of experience, it's a mind blowing experience.
It's really fun to do. I still love doing that. We did a record for there's a club south down in San Pedro where I grew up called Alva's, and Matt, the owner, he's a guitar player, and he called right after the pandemic ended, or as it was ending. The first session I did, we did it down at his performance center. So we had piano, drums, Joe Taylor, Mitch Foreman, Brandon Fields, Jimmy Earl, and then Matt played guitar. And we did the whole thing live to Pro Tools, though, multi-track, but we did it and no monitors, no click.
Yeah,
Everybody just sat up and played. And the vibe on that record turned out really, really great.
yeah,
I didn't mix it. I didn't have enough time in my schedule. I was really getting busy as the pandemic was ending down. People were just trying to catch up. So he had a
sure.
guy mix it. Did a little different than I would with the way he used his reverbs and stuff. But I have to say, he had some great source material to work with. He didn't have to do
Nice.
much.
But it must be incredible for someone like you when you're working in that environment to come up with the sounds, just like when we listen back to the Led Zeppelin drum sound, for example, or even Ringo's
Yeah.
drum sound.
Yeah.
Um, all
If you
the,
watch those, that's funny you bring up Ringo, is if you watch those three documentaries, the real long ones that were done by
yes,
Peter, a guy who did,
Jackson, yes.
the guy, the Australian guy, New Zealand guy, excuse me. They were amazing because they talked about some of that. If you watch the rooftop concert, which that wasn't a concert, that was a performance for their record. When you watch that, after they're done, there's a scene where they're sitting downstairs in the studio and Paul's sitting there. Oh, listen to that. He hit the tom-tom and it went onto the other channel, stereo. He used left and right and center on that, I believe. And
Yeah.
they go, wow, listen to that. Watching. This is something I tell people all the time, engineers, the new ones, because when I work with Gadd, which was quite extensive for about the last 12, 14 years, I worked with him quite a bit. I'd put one mic in the middle of his two rack toms, and I'd put it up about 12 to 14 inches so it'd pick up a little of the cymbals.
Okay.
And then I'd put one on the side with a mic that was open all the way around so it would get the ride and the floor toms. And then I'd put one on the snare, move it back about 3 inches so I'd pick up the hi-hat and the kick drum. 4 mics this way. And wow, I still do that, and people
Nice.
go, how did they get those sounds? Well, they didn't use 15 mics on the drums. They used 5 or 3,
Yeah.
and if you
Yeah.
look, they put a nice Neumann 47 tube mic in the middle of the kit, just over to pick up everything.
Sure.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
you can't beat it. The more you add, sometimes it takes away. But then you got guys like Dave Weckl, who is both our dear friend. He mics everything. I see what he does because I recorded 4 albums for him. His sound is so intensely present.
Yeah.
It's just got such a great sound. I mean, that's part of his thing. It's his sound. And he uses a lot of but I watch what he does, and I learned some things from him,
Yeah.
definitely. But
No,
most of the
he's
stuff I had by the time I met Dave or started working with Dave, because I'd met him in the 90s, I pretty much had the way I did things down. But working with him and then moving on with Mike Stern and getting to work with Dennis Chambers and these kind of guys, it raised it up. I go, oh, wow. It brought it up another notch for me, quite a big notch,
right.
actually. But
Yeah, and Dave is a really meticulous about his sound, and he spent hours and hours on just the sound itself.
yeah,
Gino Vanelli was like that. He was a
yeah,
complete maniac. Gino Vanelli's a drummer and singer, and when they would record, because when they were putting that whole project here, and Graham Lear, the drummer, who I
sure.
know very well, whenever they would do a sound check, the sound check was like a recording. And when you went to see their concerts, it sounded like a stereo recording, like you were wearing headphones.
I've
And
never
it's
seen him.
no,
He's playing. He just did a show a couple days ago, and he's taking off until December. I
okay.
will. I will. Maybe I'll see him in Montreal.
Well, there you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, stay till the
Absolutely.
end of- Anyway.
But being, I mean,
Uh,
understanding the value of that, how things sound is really important. I mean, as a player, I mean, we're always meticulous about what sounds we use, and if it doesn't, the first thing, sorry, the first thing you do, you make sure you sound good. Like the sound is in your hands. It's not really the instrument. So
right.
once you understand how to control that and bring yourself to the level where you can control that, the dynamics, the touch, the nuance,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, I mean, Weckl and Gadd is even, I mean, Gadd is, I had a chance to work with, not to work with, but to watch Gadd as when I was a student at McGill. I used to go down to New York to study with guys down there because my idea was to move to New York and
Sure.
the studios there, which never happened because then I couldn't get away anymore.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot watching people like Gadd and Alan
Yeah.
Schwartzberg and all of those guys. They would invite me to the sessions. So I'd watch how they're like from the attitude, from the way they approach the whole process, because that's what I also wanted to learn. And it was the time when Gadd was, all of a sudden he blew up, and everybody's wondering, how does he get that sound? What is he really doing? Because it was such a mystery for all of us. And so I would come back here, and I started working a lot here. And it was during that era where engineers would say, okay, now you're in the studio, take off your bottom heads, tape it all up. And then we were all getting so tired of it,
Yeah.
really, really tired of whether I was playing percussion or drums. It was always the same thing. And you know, it was like some of us were like looking for the bridge, like the real bridge.
I understand.
Get me out of here. And it got to a peak where it was really awful. But then I would talk to people. I would say, "This is what Gadd's doing," and even I convinced. I almost got in trouble for this one. This one engineer who knew me really well. I came like 2 hours early to the session, and he said, "Okay, you're going to take off your bottom heads." I said, "Listen, do me a favor. I'm going to keep the bottom heads on, and I'm going to tune them like this." My bass drum was 18 inch by 18 inch,
Wow. Okay.
something I built. And I said, "But please listen to this and trust me." The guy started sweating. He said, "Aldo, I can't do that." I says, "Listen, I'll take full responsibility. I have to do this. If something happens, I'll pay for the whole session. Blame it all on me. I'll leave town, whatever you want. But but promise me one thing, don't let anybody in the drum booth."
Yeah.
So he says, "You're serious?" I said, "Yes."
Yeah.
So he did it. The session went really well. The guy was, shaking as everybody was leaving. And then he was calm. And I called him and I says, "How did it go?" He says, "It was fantastic. But please don't ever do that again to me."
Really? But it works great,
It
right?
worked. And then
Yeah.
the word started getting around. Hey, the guy did this and the double heads, and he tuned them like the way. And I was watching Gadd like very closely, all the way he was manipulating his drums, the way he was tuning them. The only thing at the time, Gadd was using those oil heads,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
which for me was I couldn't. I mean, I couldn't get a sound out of those.
Oh, no, they're different. They're a
Yeah.
different thing, Same with the black dots, they work
Yeah,
for certain
those things
things,
I
but
couldn't just because I'm not a heavily built guy and I just couldn't get a sound. But once I figured it out, I said, "That's what it is." And I said, "God saved us."
yeah, that's true.
But
That's
anyway,
good.
but
I did his 70 Strong album. I recorded the whole thing. And when we went over there, we did it in Landau's studio at his house, which basically the garage. And then the control room was in one of the bedrooms, where he had his big console and all that. And they just started playing. I didn't get
nice.
a drum sound check. I had to do it on the fly while they were playing. I got quick levels, and
Okay.
then I just
Nice.
hit the record. They'd come each day with a song. Okay, here's Jimmy Johnson. I have this song to do, or Walt, or Landau. And I just put it in record and let it go and recorded everything. And then when they felt they had the take, so all that record, there's like versions of a song where they'll have 3 hours of recording or 2 hours of recording and then completely different versions or concepts for the song. Like one of the songs they did like this reggae thing, and I go, wow, that's great. But they kept progressing and progressing and working, and they'd come up with the final version of it. And all those other versions now, I don't have them on my hard drive. I kind of wish I did, but it's not my property, so
Right, right, of course.
I just did the final versions. But no time for sound check. Just
Wow.
put
Yeah.
the mics up, make sure the signal's going in. We're recording, and we put the Leslie for the B3 for Larry Goldings, put it out in the yard tool shed out on the side of the
Nice.
house, seriously. And
Wow.
one was in one of the bedrooms with his mic. I think he had his iPhone up or something so he could see them. They did that, and it turned out great. We did the posts over here, and then we ran out of time. So Jay Messina, who's just a great number one, he's a great engineer, but number two, he's really a great guy. I actually hung with him in New York. I had tours. We ran out of time, so I sent the files to Jay to finish up. And when I saw him, he said, "What'd you do?" He goes, "I turned the bass down a half a dB and changed the reverb, and pretty much that's it." And I go, "That's great." He didn't have to
Yeah.
do much, he said, which was really flattering for me,
Yeah.
And
Nice. Nice.
he ended up just doing the final touches. There's a couple tunes on there where he didn't. They just used my mixes. In fact, the one, if you go to Gadd's website, there's this song on there that it's a pretty burning tune. I can't remember the name of it, but that's on his website. When you hit stevegadd.com up, the music plays along with that's one I mixed and recorded, mixed and for,
Nice.
which was like, oh,
Nice.
that's cool. I love it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, since the beginning, he's such a balanced player. Whatever he plays,
Yeah,
he, it's like he knows what you're hearing. And
exactly. Yeah, but he knows what he's hearing too. There's something interesting about him. He likes the cymbals higher than what I would do. But I
higher,
never looked at it. I looked at it as the consumer, the listener and the audience would sit in front of the drum kit and hear it this way more about. But the way he hears it is the cymbals are because cymbals are up, closer to his ears. So he hears those louder. So he raised the overheads up and I go, well, in my thought, those are really hot. You don't really hear much of the band. He goes, well, this is the way I hear it. So I was on tour with Stern somewhere in Europe, and I had all my pretty final rough mixes of the record, and I played it for Steve Smith, and he goes, "Oh my God, I that's exactly how me as a drummer. That's how I hear my drums. It's perfect." Because I said, "Do you think the cymbals are too loud?" He goes, "If you're sitting behind the kit, that's how we hear it. That's
yeah,
how I
yeah,
would hear it, just like that. That's great."
yeah. The
So
interesting thing about Gadd is, oh, generally his cymbals are drier.
yeah,
So that's why, I mean, I don't like cymbals that just go on and on, and it drives me crazy because the pitches of those cymbals that interfere with with the next section of the tune, which is in a different key or something,
right,
or
right.
it just doesn't match. So it kind of drives me crazy. But I always noticed that he played with much drier cymbals, so I'm sure that helps that they don't
Yeah.
become, yeah,
Keeps going. And he has three. So how I got that record, that project was I had to strategize a little, because I know Gadd. I'd worked with him. I knew Walt Fowler for since I was 20. And I did a bunch of Fowler brother records for Bruce, Tom, Steve, all of them. I did dozens of records for that family of musicians. So they knew I was capable of doing it. So it was a flat rate for the whole album project. And I go, I'm going to do a Steve Gadd record. This is going to be awesome. And I I said, oh, they called me to do some live shows and they said, we're going to do an album. I said, oh, I can do the album. And they said, oh, okay. So I got to do the record that way. I just I created the opportunity for myself. In fact, how I met Gadd and how I first worked with him, I saw on Catalina Jazz Club, I saw the schedule that he was coming. So I called Manny, the manager over there, said, Manny, do you have a sound? Does he have a sound engineer? He goes, I don't think so. I said, I'll do it. Just give me a dinner and parking. Pay for my dinner and my parking, and I'll do all 4 nights for you for nothing because I want to work with this guy and Joey DeFrancesco
oh
and
yeah, wow,
Gadd and Ronnie Kerber, sax player, who unfortunately I didn't get along with him. So it made it a little unpleasant, but the rest of it was uh, perfect. A guitar player who I've never heard of, and then and since, I don't
okay.
know, he's not from LA. And we did 4 nights over at Catalina, so I got to know him. And so when we did the record was coming up, he already knew of me. And then Walt said, "Yeah, he did all the records. They listened to some stuff, and it was that's it. I created back
Sure.
to our original point when we started this interview is that I created that situation for me. I just didn't wait for the phone to ring and say, okay, hey, do you want to do a Steve Gadd record? I actually created the situation to make it
Yeah.
to where I could meet Steve and work with him and let him know what I can do. And
Yeah.
it worked. And then same when the album came up. I was supposed to go on a world tour with them and do stuff. Unfortunately, my schedule wouldn't allow me to make it a full-time thing. And but I got to do the record, and
Yeah.
that's was great. And I've recorded them quite a few times since with different
Right.
scenarios, and he's
No, and
just a
that's
great.
and that's adding to your network, to their network too. So everybody has more options, and like you have to show up. You have to make yourself seen, heard, be there. Like I said earlier, like the showing up factor is important, and participate. I mean,
Schmooze. The
if
schmooze. We go over to the Baked Potato Jazz Club on a Tuesday night where there's everybody in the business hanging, and where you go there and say hi and listen to some music and let them know you're still around. The last year I've been out of town a little more than I probably should have been doing these tours and stuff. But that's just since the beginning of the year, I didn't have much on my calendar for my studio. I was just kind of not sure what's going to happen in the world. So I said, well, I'm getting these offers, so I'm going to take them, and I probably shouldn't have taken so much. For example, last week I was in North Carolina. And I flew to Washington, D.C. in the morning, then I flew to L.A. in a 5.5 hour flight, got off I came to my studio and worked here for 9 hours. It's
yeah, yeah,
too much. I should have just, to one of them, I should have said no, but I didn't, and it's okay.
yeah. No, but you have to also push yourself to be there because you can also at a point become complacent, not complacent, but passive in oh, I don't need this, I shouldn't do that.
Yeah, yeah, you have to be careful.
As long as you're taking care of your health, mental and physical,
Yeah,
then you should be out there. You should be doing it until you can't.
yeah, until we can't. You're right. Well, I mean, Randy Brecker and Gadd are both, I
Yeah,
think Randy's 80 and so is Steve, and they're out there
yeah,
kicking butt, just
yeah.
doing it. But
Oh
I
yeah,
know sometimes I'll sit in the studio here for, 3 days straight, and the only exercise I get is standing up to go use the toilet real quick. So actually have a little apartment here at my studio, and my house is out in the desert about 2 hours from there, but can't commute. So I have a little bachelor apartment behind my studio where I stay, and I have a treadmill in there. So sometimes I hit it for 20 minutes, because if you don't move, man, after 3 or 4 days, you really feel it. So I'm trying to keep active, but it's getting harder and harder.
sure. How I
Traveling is
have
getting
I
harder
have
and
a
harder.
question.
Not physically for my health, but the way that the airlines are and the airports are,
Yeah.
and it's just
No, of course, all of that, the whole logistical situation has changed so dramatically. I mean, from touring to recording to just about anything, right? I mean, I remember talking about like the touring. We used to take all our instruments. We
yeah.
would rarely do any backline, and we used to like travel with like 40 cases, like travel cases, and everybody used to bring everything so that like, everybody would set up, and you always had your things, nothing to worry about. Now you can't even take a toothbrush.
No, pretty much. That's true. Yeah, taking guitars and stuff, guys are starting to rent guitar backline. I did one tour. We go for like 3 weeks, and it's a Persian artist. Most fun tour I ever did, but I'll save that for a little bit later in this conversation. But the guitar player said, I want a, um, Telecaster, the Mike Stern Tele from Yamaha.
Right.
I want that backline, and I want a set of new strings, nines on the high E and down, and I want that backlined. And he'd come in early and put the strings on and tune it up, and
Yeah.
he never even carried a guitar with him
Yeah, no,
anymore.
you can't anymore. I mean, there's some things. I mean, fortunately, that also the back line has adjusted, so we can do this because before, I mean, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, that would have been impossible.
Yeah.
Because then you have such personalized gear that has to be like that. Otherwise, it doesn't sound the same, and you don't play the same. And sometimes that's okay, but not
Yeah.
always.
No,
And
some of them are really not the drums, especially now. But the guys have their heads, they have the sizes, and most of the time it's good unless the hardware isn't in good
yeah,
shape. But most of the guys, they get along. Some of them sound great. I'm working with that band Ambrosia.
Right.
now, and most of the time we get a good sounding. All the time we get a good sounding kit, but occasionally we get just a phenomenal snare that just sounds, wow, that snare was like incredible. Sometimes the toms, I don't know, they're mid-rangey, but it's the same kit every time. I same model,
Technically,
same
yes.
sizes. He
Yes.
tunes them, but sometimes they just have, they got the in the mid-range, and I have to deal with that. But again, I do it really quick. I can do a drum sound 10 minutes, no, 5 minutes sometimes. Just put
Yeah.
the faders up,
The
use the
but
same
the
mics.
but the other challenge, I guess, for a sound man, just I mean, as a player would be, because sometimes I'm doing drum set, but sometimes I'm doing percussion. And this year I was touring with Omar Sosa, the pianist, and the whole I had to get backline because I was doing percussion and all of these really odd instruments, and I had a couple of things that are my own that had to bring.
Yeah.
But I would say, please, these instruments and no substitute with a big N, but sometimes they just can't help it. And so I would see the sound guy just like, and I'd say I asked, but so you have to like the engineer. I mean, we have to adjust to that instrument too
Yeah, yeah,
because it doesn't respond the same way. Drum set is a lot better now than the percussion, but some of these companies are not consistent still enough.
right. Are you playing drums and percussion at the same
No, and this
time?
one
Like
was,
you'll
well,
pick
yeah,
things up
both,
and
both. So the drum set was not so much of a problem, but the
yeah,
percussion, like cajones, bongos, and
yeah,
all of
especially
these other
cajones.
things, and I have a special 14-inch drum that I play with a pedal, and I have a special, and it's only 3 inches deep, and we do a special thing with that, and that I have to carry with me. But these are small instruments,
Yeah, yeah.
but the
Put them
but
in
the
a
main
suitcase.
things,
Yeah.
some brands are really easy, as you know. Others they shouldn't even be out there. But so it just creates another challenge,
It's true. But it works,
both for the player and sound, because then the way you're used to miking something, all of a sudden there's this new instrument that's here that's got a different design or something is different acoustically about it. So as a player, you have to, one has to get used to that. But on the other side, now you have to make this thing work like you did yesterday.
Well, with
Right?
guitars, a Fender Twin always works, and
Yeah.
bass amps, there's like two or three that always work. Drums, Yamaha, DW, Gretsch, they all have a certain sound, but
Yeah.
they all work. When it comes to microphones now, that's a different story. They all have a different way they attach to the drum, which,
Right.
they're using the clip-on mics for the toms, so we can use Electro Voice EVs, which I like to a certain, they have certain mid-range sound, but I know how to deal with them. The Shure little Beta 98s and the SM 98s that clip on, there's another one, but they have this mount that's kind of flexy mount. So after the drums shake, the mic's kind of backed off from the position. They've actually changed that now, and they have one that looks like a little lollipop, and you clamp it on, and it's a side address mic. And those I have used a few times and love them.
Right.
Um, that's the thing changes for me. But the snare, I always use a Beta 52. Sure, on the kick, always. Sometimes I can't. I have to put the mic inside because of space. You have a singer like with Oingo Boingo, the seven original guys that are still in that band. The singer will jump up onto the drum riser. And if I put a mic stand there it gets in the way and I'll knock it. And Mike Stern, he'd always walk up to the drummer and play, groove. And I'd look and where'd happen to kick? And he'd move the mic stand back. So I started using the little flat one you put inside, which worked most of the time, but Beta 52 for the kick, 57 for the snare, always. And the rest I don't really care about. I just make them work.
Right. Right. What's the other thing that's changed for you in the? I mean, being in LA, which was like a recording center, you mentioned like 200 studios. I mean, that's amazing.
Mhm.
to be in that kind of environment, like 200 studios.
Big
Um,
studios. And that was, I mean, major studios. That was back in the 70s and
of course,
early
of course.
80s up till digital came in.
Yeah. So now we're living in a completely different world. Not just physically the studios, but also, I mean, a lot of it is recording. I mean, I receive tracks, and I don't even have to be there, like all of us do. They get. I was just speaking to Steve Thornton. It was a percussionist who used to work with Miles and all of these guys, and Michael Jackson, all of these people in New York. But he's been living in Malaysia for years, and still is
Ah,
working from there. He and I worked together in China, and I'd forgotten that he was in Malaysia. And then I asked him, "What's the difference?" He says, "Now it's amazing because I don't even have to go anywhere. They just send me the tracks, unless I'm doing a tour here in, you know, in
sure.
Asia somewhere.
Sure. Yeah.
That's easy."
Well, there's something to be said for this. I know a lot of engineers who moved out of LA during the pandemic. They moved, and they're great engineers. And I have a house in Joshua Tree, California, which is 2 hours east of here. Right now, I'm just north downtown LA, Dodger Stadium, and it takes me 2 hours to get to my little house out there. And I found that doesn't work.
Hmm.
It doesn't work for me. I have to be here. It doesn't work for me to do that. It did during the pandemic to a certain extent, but it so guys I know that moved out, and I say, wow, don't I'm not worried about it. The work's going to come to me. I'll be busy. No, it after a while they forget about you quick when you're gone all the time. They
Right.
really do. So a lot of these guys are, not doing as well as they could have had they stayed here. Also, um, on that topic, a lot of guys aged, they felt, they had families and stuff, so they got into TV and film work. Okay, they got into the TV and film thing, and I was asked to do that a million times, and I said, I want to make records, I want to make music, I want to make records. So I never got into that. So here you have the pandemic, which stopped our industry, film industry. Then you had, as soon as the pandemic was, they had a strike, a writer's strike, and good for them. I appreciate their what they're trying to do, but their timing couldn't have been worse.
Sure.
So, how many years has it been since the pandemic started? Probably 5 or 6.
Five. Yeah.
They're still suffering from that. All the stuff. So, okay, well, if you don't want to, we'll go somewhere else. And they go, oh, this works and it's cheaper. So they're not coming back. So all those guys who did the film, TV, not all of them, but a lot of them, they had to drop out.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
had to drop out, or they had to, they're suffering. And it's
Yeah.
really a drag because there's some really, really great engineers out there that just, I stayed with my dream. This is what I want to do. I don't want to do that. I'm doing a little too much live sound stuff now too, which I really love. But the the flights, you leave Friday, you fly somewhere, it's 5 hours, stay overnight, do a show, get up early, fly back on Sunday, and
Yeah.
it's starting to wear down on me.
Yeah. That, I mean, that's bound to happen. And also, the flying is not what it used to be. It used to be quick, fun, and it's not fun anymore. It's like taking a bus.
Yeah, yeah, they'd feed you and give you a blanket. Now they give you a can of Pringles for $8 and an apple juice. That's my favorite airline food. Pringles in the can, the little red one. Pringles and apple juice, and then I wait to get there. And plus, I'm 6.5 feet tall. I don't fit. I have to book my flights. That's one thing I started doing years ago. Is I'm booking my own flights. I'll keep your budget in mind, but I'm sorry if you want me to do it, and
Sure.
it's going to
Sure.
cost an extra 20% because I'm on United instead of. I won't fly in Southwest. They're a great airline for people under 6 feet tall, but if you don't get there's 4 seats on the plane that I can fit on, and there's no
Yeah.
way I'm going to take that gamble. So if I don't get those 4 seats, actually there's three. If I don't get them, I can't fit, and I'm not even going to sit there for 4 hours on a plane suffering because to save the clients $20. So I go on United. I book my own flights. I look, is that seat available? Nope. So I changed to another flight.
Yeah. No, I
You know,
remember you made me remember the number of times that I'm on a flight. I'm 5'5", so I fit anywhere. I'm easy. I'm an easy fit, but I would feel so bad for some of these guys who are sitting in a seat by the window, and their whole flight they're like this.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I have my seats, 21A, 21F. That's it. Give me that on United. And then it's funny because I just came back from Charlotte, North Carolina on Sunday, a couple days ago anyway, and I booked it to where I can get one of those lie flat business seats. And they told me the price. I have a flight credit with United for like $300. The price for the lie flat was $500 more. I said, okay, I'll pay $200 for that. That's fine because I'm going to sleep fresh, get up, come do my session for 10 hours, which I did. Um, they canceled the first flight to go from Charlotte to Washington, D.C. to catch that flight was delayed. And I'm sitting on the plane and we had to go back to the thing, the door thing. I missed my connection. And they said, well, we'll get you a later one from DC. I said, I'm not going to DC. I'm going to LA. So they hooked me up. And I had paid, I don't know, extra $20 to get from Charlotte to DC to get the seat 1A because I had a quick turnaround. I had 42 minutes to get to the next gate. So I wanted to be right there by the door. So I paid for a business class seat. So what they did is they put me on a different airline, direct flight from Charlotte to LA on a business class seat.
nice.
And I was so worried,
Sure, sure.
but I got back and they made it very pleasant for me. And I did get 3 hours of sleep. So when I came and did my 10-hour session, I was still pretty fried, but not unable to work,
Not
you
in
know.
pieces, right? What are some of the things that you're planning to, and I shouldn't say planning to work. We always have that thing that we've always wanted to work on, but it's your wish list. It's on your number one bucket, but you just can't get to it because you're doing all of these other things.
I would like to mix AC/DC in Hyde Park in London for no, something like that. That'd be fun. And I do have a connection with them, a couple of things, but I don't think that'll happen ever. They're set. But I just want to do more producing. I want to be involved. I don't want to be a button pusher for people that have exact ideas. This is exactly what I want to do. And I have some of those clients and I love them and they're great. And I've adjusted because I'm hands-on. I want to throw my stuff in, but now sometimes I just follow their lead. I'll make some suggestions. Some things are that they request, in my opinion, are silly and just a time waste, but I do it for them and try and help them get what they want. And, I make a living that way.
Yeah,
But I want to try and do more things where I get to be in from the creation of they bring a song in, I get to help them arrange it. I get to give my ideas. And I just did one of those for this Nepalese metal band called Nepkali, Nepal, California,
right.
Nepkali. And we did this one song, and I go, I'll do one song on you from start to finish. We're going to come in, send me 5 songs. I listened to them. I found one. I go, this could be really cool. And we used Tool as the band Tool, Danny, who's a buddy of mine. We used their style as a template or a concept to make it. Let's do this. A lot of drums and great guitars and stuff. I said, you guys are from Nepal. That's very cool and exotic, and people love that. Everybody loves Nepal and Mount Everest
Right.
and all this stuff. So let's use those ideas into this song. And it worked great. It worked really great. So we came in, I took their demo, we put it in, I cut it up, we timed everything with a click. We did the work guitars, then we did the bass. Then I called in a friend of mine, Fernando Jarana, and he's from Chile, and he played with the Persian artist, and he was more of a metal drummer. He sounds like stuff that's the style Danny would play,
Okay.
or Gavin Harrison play. In fact, we went and saw Gavin play, and I go, it sounds like you. I
Right.
hired him to come and play drums on it. And it just killed it. We just put it out like a couple weeks ago. It's already got 220,000 hits or views. So, but that's something I want to do. Interesting. We had sitars and we had tablas, we had chants, we had bells, temple bells and stuff like that, and big crushing guitars and screaming grungy vocals. And these are the kinds of things I want to do. Come in from the beginning. And
Nice, nice. Yeah.
I'm mixing a song for a band from Portland now, and it's just phenomenal. It's guitar, drums, and bass, kind of fusiony, shredding, and the drums. I've spent like 3 hours. How can I get these drums? I just have basic kick, snare, hat, two toms and two overheads, and I just can't get them to punch like they want. So I spent about 3 hours. I have to start over on it. But for me, to be able to get in from the beginning, is it let me record these drums and they'd be
Yeah.
perfectly what I'm hearing. I don't have to go in and replace everything with samples. And it's just, if you get it right the first time, you don't have to do that. So,
Yeah.
but that's the way they did it. So my job is to make it sound like this. But if I was in from the get-go, I would say, okay, this is what we're going to do. And I want to do more of that. I want to find the band, and I want to get paid for it too. I don't
Yeah.
want to just do them all as vanity fun projects to fulfill my creative needs, you
Yeah.
know.
No, doing those fun projects, it feeds your inner
Yeah.
curiosity. 'Cause sometimes you just, even those high paying gigs and those high level things, sometimes are not what you need from on that. You know, I'll use the word spiritual, but it's really your imagination
Yeah,
and
of
your
course. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
place that really needs to be fed.
That's what I want to do. More of those, that fill in there. Yeah, of course. During the pandemic, I worked with an artist out of the desert. We did 4 songs, and it helped fulfill my creative needs at the time. And it worked for me. I don't
Nice,
even know. I think one of the songs was she released, but turned out really nice. And it
beautiful.
kept me sane during the time when we couldn't work. But right now, like I have one guy, he's a great guy, he hired a great session musicians to play on his tracks, but he hadn't played saxophone in like 20 years. He's just because he stopped, raised his family, he wants to get back into it. So I'm like tuning saxophones and stuff like that. And it turned out nice, but it's like that's not my priority if I want to
Right,
do
right,
this,
right, right.
tuning saxophones or adjusting drum things like that. It's
Yeah,
not it's more of a technical thing than a
right.
creative thing. So that's for my future. That's what I want to do is more of those.
Yeah, you also wrote a few books on the art of what was I remember
Drum recording handbook.
the recording handbook. Yes, yeah,
Uh,
you've written 2 books, right?
The other is Studio Builder's Handbook.
Okay.
And these are part of Bobby Osinski, who's just a great guy, really good friend, part of his series of books. The first one we did on Hal Leonard was Drum Recording Handbook. And it's funny how that happened. I said, I wanted to do a little, so I did a little pamphlet. It's about 24, 25 pages long. And I went and typed it, I printed, I took all the pictures, and I was selling it on my website. I think I sold 3 a month or something like that. So Bobby, who's also a guitar player, although that's not his main thing anymore, and a producer, he came in with this band. They're a rock band, and he came in to my studio and recorded some tracks. And of course, the drummer came in, and I got the drum sound, and it was pretty slamming. And it took me 5 minutes to get it. And so I've known Bobby forever since early 90s. And he goes, wow, the drums just sound great. And you did that so quick. How do you do that? And I said, oh, I wrote this little pamphlet. Here, take one. I go, oh, this is great. So he's looking at it. And we did a session about 4 or 5 days later, he called me, "Hey, do you know what my day gig is?" And I go, "Musician." I thought. He goes, "No, I write books about music industry and technical stuff about recording, mastering, mixing. I've got about a
Hey,
dozen out now in my series. I just got offered, Hal Leonard offered to put this out for us, and I have to take your book and make it into a bigger book and do some interviews and stuff like that. And are you interested? Yes, immediately.
nice.
So we put it out, and I think it's sold. It's on the second edition. We did 5,000 on the first, and I think the second we did another 5,000. But they took the DVD out, which really bothered me because the DVD was really cool. So we that's how I did the drum book. And then I had another idea. Hey, I got this other idea about building studios. Nobody, home studios are, everybody wants one now, but
Sure.
they don't know what to do. So we did that kind of together. He gave me my chapters. These are your chapters. These are my chapters. So just do them quick. And I think I did that in about 4 or 5 days. I mean, I had all stuff in my head, but I had to write it out. So I just did a voice to text thing, and then he edited it. But it's basically my part's like, what do you think of? You build a studio. What about insurance? What if someone comes in and breaks their finger and can't play their guitar for a year? They're going to sue you for millions. You don't think about toilet paper, paper towels, coffee, insurance, code. You got your fire extinguishers, you got your signs, all these things. So I wrote a lot about that stuff.
Interesting.
To show people there's more to it than just throwing up a computer in your spare bedroom and putting some speakers up. So we did that book, and it's done very well also. I still get, a little money for dinner and a coffee every month. I get a little
Right,
check.
of course. Yeah. No, but it's interesting that, as things develop, and there's new needs that are being developed or showing up that have to be serviced. And and
Yeah,
sometimes and sometimes we forget about this, well, call it evolution, call it whatever we want. But being on top of it, and being able to be in it, whatever form it takes, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Right now, I had another book I wanted to do about tour planning a tour. People, they don't have a clue. What do you do? How do you do this? How do you make a stage play? I was going to do another book about that, but like I say, I want to record and produce great music. I don't want to write another book, although that would have been a really good one. I thought about that about 5 years ago, but now everybody has one on their YouTube channel. This is
That's
how you prepare for a tour. I go, that's how you prepare for a tour. Isn't that how I would?
yeah,
So
yeah,
anyway, yeah, the world's changing so fast, especially technically, which brings up a point about consoles. They want to make them smaller and smaller and smaller now so that you can transport them in on your flight. Bring the console about 2 feet wide, fit in a suitcase or a hard case. I hate that. I want a console where I see all the faders on it, and I
wow,
have some
yeah.
ideas that I'd love to
And
present to some company where you actually have all the faders on one page and one bank with all the stuff. You push this button, it does this. Yamaha consoles are like that, the CL5 and even the old M7 CL, which everybody loves to hate, but it works great. You see every fader on there,
yeah,
and you push a button to select the channel, and everything's there: your compression, your equalizers, your effects, what you want to do. So anybody, even a non-sound person, I can teach them to use it in 5 minutes. But
right.
these other consoles are like trying to fly the 747. It's too complicated.
Yeah.
I don't want to devote that much time to learning this console I'm going to use, maybe once a year. So it's kind of the technology is going too fast. Another one, the Yamaha DL series, excellent consoles. Love to use it, but they don't have any knobs on them.
So
It's
what
all
did they
touch
use?
screen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean there are some knobs you can program to do that, but I want to. Okay, I need more high mids. to turn the knob. There's my high mids. I don't want to have to go through and drag. Oh, is that half a dB? Oh no, it's 2 dB because I'm dragging with my big finger, you know. I don't want to do that. So there's something they stepped ahead. There's the Revenge console by Yamaha, which is the next step up from the CL5 console that has knobs on it, but it's not the same workflow. It's another big learning curve, and
Right.
you keep up with it. And then you learn that one, and then it's gone.
Six
You know,
months.
so
6 months and
you
you're
know,
in a new one. Yeah. Now you remember the old Neve boards and all those, you walk into a room and it's like the room is the board.
yes, yeah, I sure do.
Yeah.
I
And
remember going. I did a thing for Missy Elliott on her Misdemeanor album. I think that thing sold like 10 million copies. I recorded her vocals on one of the tunes. We used one channel for a mic and two channels for the playback of, and I didn't even use that, but it was a 88 channel SSL
oh yeah, the
console, or maybe
SSL.
it was a Neve V series. And it had about that much room on each side of the console to get around, you know, and it was it was something else. And I go, this is, you know, kind of overkill for
Yeah.
for
But
mixing.
now
Yeah.
now they have to compress everything into such a tiny space that everything has like 15 functions, the same thing.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Ah,
That
yeah.
I wish we could go back, and I know there's a lot of other guys that wish they could go back. So one of these days, maybe at the next NAMM show in February and next year, I'll start looking for a company that will listen to me, you know, about this. Because guys get used to the new way and
Sure.
they don't even realize how awesome the old way was. And
Sure.
it's still
Sure.
possible to put 72 faders into a smaller console. It's just going to be nothing but faders and one control panel, you know. So anyway, it's in my head.
Yeah, I don't think you would be alone in that request. It's like very much like the LP, you know. I mean,
Yeah,
CDs
yeah.
and then online, and now we listen to music in a. Um, I put out my. I had 5,000 LPs. I mean, it was out really out there, and then I sold them all to somebody, and I kept like 200 of them, which were like collectibles and records I was on, and I listened back, I put them on, and they sound so different. I had
Yeah.
forgotten, and now I sit and listen to LPs. I don't listen. I have a hard time listening unless it's just reference or things you have to learn or whatever. But as far as enjoying or really listening, um,
Yeah, they reduced the MP3s down to nothing. You know, you sit there when we work on a record, I either on my phone, I'll load up 44.1 16-bit WAV files from my Dropbox, and I have a player on my phone that will play those files without reducing their quality to my knowledge. But anyway, or I'll do CD. I still love CDs. I wish they didn't go away, but I think the companies forced that so that were forced to go to streaming
sure.
services and pay. I think that's why they did that. So
Oh
you
yeah,
don't actually own your music, you're just renting it, which is ridiculous to me. But I'd listen to CD, I'd make a CD of the mixes, and I'd listen in my car, I'd listen on my headphones, I'd listen where I go, and then I'd say, okay, and then they'd put it out online, and I'd listen and go, wow, what a difference. It just sounds so reduced to
yeah,
me. You know, people are just missing all the great work we do to make this great sounding record. But the public and the consumers are used to that's how records sound now, is they
yeah,
sound like these little MP3s, and
yeah.
that's the way it is now.
It's amazing. And then when you hear like in a real sound system, and you
Yeah,
hear the differences, and you hear the space.
yeah, yeah. It's really
Oh,
great when you get a like the Nepalese band. It's out on YouTube now, and it sounds pretty good, but it's missing some of the, you know, this punch that I put in there. It's a little less dramatic than it was. It still sounds great, but it's just a little less dramatic than it was when I listened to the real recording of the high def stuff. It's just
Yeah.
so different. But that's our world
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
days, you
No,
know.
and
It's
it's,
just
and yeah,
cut it down, make it smaller, sell it for more money. It's with everything.
yeah, yeah. But those of us who have lived long enough and have seen all those changes, I mean, we know what they are, and you reference every once in a while something, and you see or hear the difference. We
Yeah.
do certainly, but those people who have never, they have no idea. I mean, my kids when they first saw my LPs said, well, first of all, I had to explain to them what a CD was, but then they said, "Oh, the CDs used to be big."
Let's see these.
But
These are discs.
that's technology. That's life. I mean, I guess they would probably say the same thing when the cars were invented. I
Yeah.
mean, all of these things. Now it is what it is. And now with the electric vehicles, I mean, now they're referred to those. They're not even cars. They're
Yeah.
like they're your phones on wheels.
Right, right. You know,
I
lately
mean,
it's interesting you say that. It's lately in the last few months I've really been thinking, well, this is like traveling at the airport. Well, this is just the way it is now.
yeah,
There's no going back to how it was, and it's going to get worse. It's just the way it is. So you either take it and adjust, or you go around and find something else to do.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I noticed that especially with traveling and everything. It's just, it's the way it is. There used to be a big Pringles can on the plane. Now it's half the size, but it's the same price.
yeah,
These kind of things. It's just about making an extra dollar instead of. There's an example. Trader Joe's. Do they have those in Canada?
yeah,
Great store. There was like three or four things I used to buy every time I go shopping there. I'd buy none of them. They say supply issues. No, it's not a supply issue. You just didn't sell enough to make it profitable, so you cut it. You cut that item out of. You don't sell it anymore because you aren't making enough money on it. But
yeah,
what about the people who really want that product? I'll charge $1 more. I'll pay for it, and I'm sure other people will too. But it's not available anymore. And every time I go in there, I say, "What happened to this?" Oh, supply issues.
yeah,
BS. Not
yeah.
true.
Well, it's like they're not going to stop importing coffee, but that goes up. See, they got it, and people are still buying them even more, right?
Well, I'll go for the Colombian. I just took a trip I looked at my calendar about 3 months ago, and I had a 13-day span, and I had one 3-hour editing session right in the middle of it. So I called the guy and said, "Guess what? Regarding our session, I'm moving it." And I went online, and this is something that was really interesting. I went on to Chat GPT AI, and I said, "I want to take a vacation. I want to leave on this date. I want to go to this city. I want to stay there, and then I want to leave the next day. I want to go to this city." I have 4 cities I chose. One was Belize City, Belize. Then from there, I went to Guatemala City in Guatemala. And from there, I went to San Salvador,
Okay.
which is stunning. Absolutely loved it. And from there, I went to Managua, Nicaragua. And I have these dates. Tell me what to do. Tell me what airline, tell me what hotel, tell me what tours I should see. And I put this question in, and ding, 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 boosh, came up everything. And then I went in and fine tuned it. Okay, that hotel. Tell me the safest area. Is everybody's freaked out about El Salvador now, and San Salvador was incredible, absolutely stunning, beautiful, historical city. And I said, these areas are questionable, but these areas are fantastic. And I fine tuned it over about a week, and I booked everything, and I went and I took it. So
Nice.
it was amazing. But yeah, it's just, I can't remember the point I was getting at with this, but technology.
Technology, yeah.
It's just like amazing what you can do now. And I'm doing another one of those in August, but unfortunately, I want to do 5 more countries in August, maybe 4. but it's the wrong time to go to Caribbean in August and September. It's
Oh,
hurricane season, hot and humid, but I may do it anyway. My goal is to get to 100. One of my bucket lists, as we talked about it, is 100 countries. And right now I'm at night with those four are 95. Oh, we were talking about coffee. Yeah.
coffee.
So when I got to Guatemala, I went to Antigua, which is about an hour and 15 minutes west of Guatemala City. So I got my flight, I got my hotels. I had a guy meet me at the airport with a sign, and people go, "How did you arrange that? You pay $25 to the hotel, and they send a guy over to pick you up with a little sign." A tour guide I had. Then I'd check into my hotel. I'd walk around the city, stay overnight. Next day, a guy would meet me at 10 a.m. and show me all over. So we went to Antigua, and that's like the coffee area of Guatemala. Oh man. So I had one
Nice.
little backpack I brought with me, and I brought back 8 bags of coffee beans
Nice.
from those places. And but still, we were talking about coffee. Colombia. Sorry, that's the one for me.
Well, it's also in the roast. So,
Yeah, yeah.
you know,
I like the darker roast stuff. In fact, yeah, this one's gone now, but that's a lighter one I got from Nicaragua, and it was a little lighter for me. I give those to my assistant. I went to South Africa in November, and I at the airport because I couldn't find it. South Africa is not a coffee country; it's more north towards the equator. So, but they had 6 little bags of beans, coffee sampler from Africa, from Ethiopia, from Kenya. So I
right.
bought that,
Hmm.
and they're all very light and fruity for me. I like the dark, bold Colombian stuff. So I tried each one, and my assistant Jose has been there, and his wife's actually Costa Rican, so they know
Mm.
about coffee. And he
Oh
says,
yeah.
"I
Oh yeah.
love that stuff." So he got all the bags of the the lighter stuff. So
Nice.
uh, it's
Um,
interesting.
well, that's fantastic. I mean, I enjoy. I mean, when I have my espresso, if I every day is my espresso. My first espresso dictates what kind of day I'm going to have.
Yeah, I
So it has
agree.
to be good. So, yeah. Anyway,
Actually, I could use some more. That one's empty.
yeah.
Oops.
But
Didn't mean
anyway,
to.
Dennis, it's great. I mean, we can go on and on, but I'm so happy we talked about your journey and some of the stuff that I think people would listen to and learn from just from your experience. So I'm really happy you took the time to do this.
Totally, Aldo. More than happy. And what's really funny is, you know, um, you keep learning. You keep learning. You'd never stop learning about stuff.
Yeah, and you're forever curious, which is
Yeah.
good.
If you stay in it, you stay in the game, you'll have it. People say, how did you do all that stuff? I go, well, I'm old now. I'm not 20 anymore. So back when I started, you walk into the spaghetti factory on Sunset Boulevard, and there would be the whole band of the Doobie Brothers on that table eating, and there would be over there would be, wow, look at that's how you just the timing, I guess,
Sure.
and perseverance and not throwing in the towel on it. And I had a couple times when I did that. I moved to Berlin in 1993, and I stayed till 2001. And I kept in touch with my clients here the whole time. Ricky Lawson, Brandon Fields, and Bobby Owsinski. I kept in touch with those guys. And when I came back, Ricky hooked me up with the studio thing. He was one of my best buds. And Brandon hooked me up with Dave Weckl. So that was how I got Weckl's gig. And had I decided to stay in Germany, my whole life would be
Different.
different. Aber wunderbar.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. But it's always a forward motion no matter what, and that's the great thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
you got to enjoy it and going
Well,
for it.
so
And
thanks again, Dennis, and hopefully at the next time we see each other in person. I really miss not going to the NAM show in the past few years, but with all of this from from COVID to everything else, but great hangs, but we'll
yeah,
we'll catch up for sure.
Yeah, I want to go next time you do one in Cuba. I want to try and make it again. And I'm sorry I couldn't do the last one. I did eventually get there with Dave. We went and did 3 shows over there, which
Right.
was quite
And you know, I
interesting.
was when you were there, I was there right after,
Yeah,
and I wasn't aware that you were there at the same time. I would have changed my dates, but I learned that you guys. They said, you know, Dave Weckl was just here.
yeah,
So anyway,
yeah.
but Cuba. I mean, we're continuing our trips to Cuba. So we'll talk more about that. And then of course there's Calabria. That's
Oh yeah, yeah, I like that. But I hear the food in Italy is kind of not very good. Just kidding.
yeah. I have to disagree on that one.
I'm being sarcastic as usual. Yeah, I think
Oh,
Dave's over there this time of year, you know.
yeah.
But anyway, we will figure it out. Great to catch up with you, and looking forward to seeing you in person soon.
Yes. And as I always say, to be continued.